I'd finally set out to make my mark. To find adventure. But instead, adventure found me.
One of gaming's most iconic characters, Lara Croft, returns in a much-needed reboot of a beloved franchise. Developed by Crystal Dynamics and published by Square Enix, Tomb Raider is a survival action-adventure that aims to explore Lara's origins prior to her adventures in the previous games. After being shipwrecked on a mysterious island within the Dragon's Triangle, Lara is thrown into a barbaric and deadly world inhabited by wildlife, a savage band of misfits, and a mystical force of Japanese legend. From there, players assume the role of Lara as she tortuously traverses the deadly interconnecting landscape in order to seek outside help to rescue both herself and her friends of the Endurance. The story remains pretty simple throughout, as it primarily serves to push the player forward and maintain a steady and consistent pace. What keeps it interesting is the Lost-inspired mystery that surrounds the island, as there are plenty of unusual events. While you do grow sympathetic of Lara as she goes through hell, other than Conrad Roth, the majority of the characters don't get enough development to make you care as deeply as you should. They are a serviceable band of archetypical personalities, but for the most part, you'll almost forget that they're there, considering that most of the time spent with them is through chatter on walkie-talkies. The only real insight gained to further their character are from hidden journals scattered throughout the island, which also serve to provide exposition for the story. Despite this, the central focus is Lara and how she develops from a naive girl into an adventurous woman, which in many ways, you can look at this from two perspectives. At times, there is some great emotional depth as the character witnesses some horrific, life-threatening moments in addition to one particular thought-provoking situation that sets the tone for the rest of the game. Yet, on the other hand, the development of Lara's character is hindered by the inevitable game design. After her first human kill, the moral dilemma that's invoked is washed over by plenty of enemies to shoot, stab, and strangle. From a thematic standpoint, this breaks the believability that the game strives for, and can take you out of the immersion of a survival adventure. But in spite of all that, as a video game, it's still a lot of fun. The labyrinth level design gives the player plenty to do, as every new piece of gear found allows the player to explore previously unreachable locations that adds a lot of satisfaction to exploration. One obvious feature is tomb raiding, which adds a good variety of puzzles to the mix that, while not terribly difficult thanks to Lara's survival instincts, adds some welcome gameplay elements that break up action sequences. In addition, the platforming sections are brilliantly executed. You still have to remain aware of what you're doing, such as grabbing a cliff after a jump, rather than the game simply doing it for you. This way, the game keeps you on your toes, and as a result there is a much better dynamic to platforming sections. There are still an abundance of QuickTime events thrown in, but they're not as bothersome as you might expect. In fact, they're some of the better sections of the game. There are also numerous firefights that get increasingly more chaotic and intense as the game progresses, especially by the third act. At first, there are only a limited number of ways to kill an enemy, such as simply shooting them or choking them, but as you unlock improved brawler and hunting skills, the violence intensifies with a multitude of brutal takedowns and finishers. While not as gratifying from a gameplay perspective, they do help on a thematic level. Action is made more seamless thanks to relatively smooth controls that allow you to dodge and evade enemy attack, and even play dirty from time to time, such as throwing turf in their face or making an enemy drop a Molotov cocktail on themselves. The three unique skill trees such as Survivor, Hunter, and Brawler always give you a reason to keep exploring and gaining XP. The more developed your skills are, the more fun the game becomes, which in turn enhances the variety when it comes to combat and exploring. Weapons and gear can also be improved by scavenging for supplies, but it isn't a terribly remarkable feature, much like the multiplayer. I haven't played a great deal of multiplayer to give an honest impression of it, but it's rather generic for the most part. But if you're into multiplayer in a big way, you might find something to enjoy in the short term. As a whole, Tomb Raider is an impressive reboot and manages to add some much needed variety to the action-adventure genre. It doesn't stray too far away from the ordinary, and some features aren't as fleshed out as they could be, but despite some rather clunky thematic inconsistencies and the occasional repetition found in backtracking and what is, despite being an interconnected world, a cautiously linear game, there is still plenty of memorable moments to be had. Intense survivalist gameplay and exciting action set pieces make for something that is relatively different and distinct. This game will inevitably get a sequel, which is more than deserved, and it will definitely be interesting to see where Crystal Dynamics takes the series next in what could truly be a bold and fresh adventure.